The Manning-Luck swap wasn't the first time it happened. Peyton Manning, replaced in Indianapolis by Andrew Luck. That much you probably know. But what you might not know is that decades earlier, Peyton's father, Archie Manning, also got replaced by Andrew Luck's dad. In the early 1980s, Archie Manning was winding down his career, playing for the Houston Oilers. Midway through the 1982 season, the Oilers were struggling and decided to try something new at quarterback. After a couple games with Gifford Nielsen at the helm, the team gave the starting job to backup quarterback Oliver Luck. Yes, that Oliver Luck. So, Archie Manning loses his job to Oliver Luck. Fast forward 30 years, and Peyton Manning, his son, loses his job to Oliver's son, Andrew Luck. 2 generations of Mannings, 2 generations of Lucks, both father and son replaced by father and son. Philip Rivers and Antonio Gates's TD milestones. Quarterback-receiver chemistry is one thing, but what Philip Rivers and Antonio Gates had in San Diego, that was something cosmic. Here's the mind-blowing part. Rivers' 100th career touchdown pass. It went to Antonio Gates. His 200th touchdown pass, also to Antonio Gates. And if that wasn't strange enough, his 300th touchdown pass, yep, Antonio Gates again. The symmetry didn't stop there. His 100th and 200th touchdowns to Gates both came against the Dallas Cowboys. That's almost impossible to script. Dan Marino and Ben Roethlisberger, 2 quarterbacks, 2 different eras, but their careers feel like a mirrored riddle. Dan Marino, Ben Roethlisberger. One wore number 13, the other wore number 7. One went to Pitt and then played for Miami. The other went to Miami, Ohio, and then played for Pittsburgh. It's like they swapped college and pro destinations. Both were named NFL Rookie of the Year. Both took their teams to the Super Bowl in their second season. Ben won his ring. Marino lost his shot at one of the greatest careers to never get a title. One flourished in the 80s with a cannon arm and quick release. The other thrived in the 2000s with toughness and backyard playmaking. Andrew Luck and the Horseshoe of Destiny. The Colts have always had a fitting logo. The horseshoe, a global symbol of luck and fortune. But in 2012, that symbol turned into prophecy. After over a decade of dominance with Peyton Manning, the Colts collapsed to a 2-14 record. Manning left for Denver, another horse-themed team. And in that same offseason, Indianapolis held the first overall pick. Who did they draft? Andrew Luck. That's right. The Colts, with a horseshoe as their logo, drafted a quarterback named Luck. And it wasn't just any year, it was a once-in-a-generation quarterback class. The Colts needed a miracle, and somehow they pulled off one of the most poetic draft picks in NFL history. Even weirder, the QB they lost, Manning, left to become a Bronco. So it's horse to horse, luck to horseshoe. The universe went all in on the theme. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like for the algorithm. 2 NFL players having the same rare name. The name DeGraffin Reed isn't just uncommon, it's borderline unheard of. So what are the odds that 2 players with that last name would both make it to the NFL? Even crazier, they were both named Allen. Allen T. DeGraffin Reed played 5 games as an offensive tackle for the Arizona Cardinals in 1998. 5 years earlier, Allen J. DeGraffin Reed played 2 games as a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals in 1993. No relation. Different positions, different teams, different colleges, different years. The 49ers had 2 identical Bryants. In 1994, the San Francisco 49ers drafted a defensive tackle named Bryant Young out of Notre Dame. He'd go on to have a legendary career, becoming a cornerstone of their defense for more than a decade. Then, in 1995, they added another defensive lineman, Junior Bryant. At first glance, it might have just seemed like a funny coincidence that both shared the same last name. But then, the coincidences kept stacking up. Both Bryant Young and Junior Bryant were defensive linemen. Both played their entire careers with the 49ers. Both played college football at Notre Dame. Both were born in January. Junior in 1971. Bryant Young in 1972. And both nearly didn't make it. Bryant Young was a first rounder, but Junior Bryant went undrafted and had to claw his way into the league. One became a Hall of Famer, the other became a steady, reliable contributor. And for years, fans were left double-checking jersey numbers, trying to keep their Bryants straight. Mark Sanchez and the Devil's numbers. Week 6 of the 2012 NFL season wasn't supposed to be anything special. But when the New York Jets took the field for the 666th broadcast of Monday Night Football, things got weird. Starting at quarterback that night, number 6, Mark Sanchez. At the time, Sanchez's stat line was almost comically eerie. He had 6 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions, averaged 6.6 yards per pass attempt, had a long completion of 66 yards, and, somehow, his official quarterback rating was 66.6. That's not a stat someone cooked up to be funny. That was the real NFL calculated QB rating. And if that wasn't spooky enough, the quarterback backing up Sanchez that year was Tim Tebow, famous for his open expression of Christian faith, prayer celebrations, and wholesome image. You couldn't write this in a movie and expect people to buy it. One quarterback with devilish digits, another with Bible verses under his eyes, both playing on the 666th MNF broadcast. Even the most hardened skeptics had to admit something strange was going on that night. Frank Reich and the greatest comebacks ever. Some quarterbacks are remembered for rings, others for stats, but Frank Reich, he's remembered for doing the impossible twice. Let's go back to 1984. Reich was a senior backup quarterback at the University of Maryland. In a game against the Miami Hurricanes, his team fell behind 31-0. Most teams would have folded, but Reich came off the bench and led the Terps to a 42-40 win, the greatest comeback in college football history at the time. Fast forward 9 years to 1993. Reich is now in the NFL, backing up Jim Kelly for the Buffalo Bills. In a playoff game against the Houston Oilers, the Bills trailed 35-3 early in the third quarter. Kelly was injured. Reich was in. Sound familiar? Reich calmly led the Bills to an impossible 41-38 overtime win, still the biggest comeback in NFL playoff history. He wasn't supposed to be the guy. Both times, he wasn't even the starter. And yet, both in college and in the NFL, Frank Reich delivered the most legendary comebacks those leagues had ever seen. Mike Zimmer coaches Mike Zimmer. This one sounds made up, but it actually happened. In 2014, the Minnesota Vikings signed a free agent linebacker named Mike Zimmer. Nothing too wild, until you realize who their head coach was. Also, Mike Zimmer. No relation. Just two guys with the same exact name. Both from Illinois State, both involved in football, and both now employed by the same NFL team. Coach Mike Zimmer had just taken over the Vikings after decades as an assistant linebacker. Mike Zimmer, he was an undrafted rookie trying to earn a roster spot. Even the media had fun with it. Headlines read, Vikings sign Mike Zimmer, and he's not the coach. And to make things even more confusing, the Vikings linebackers coach at the time, Adam Zimmer, Coach Zimmer's son. So now you had a Mike Zimmer coaching Mike Zimmer, while Adam Zimmer coached them both. It was like a football version of a tongue twister. Nothing major came from the younger Zimmer's playing career, but for a brief moment, the Vikings had one of the most confusing staff charts in NFL history. Joe Thyman and Alex Smith injuries. Joe Theismann's leg injury is one of the most infamous moments in NFL history. But what happened to Alex Smith 33 years later? That's where things get eerie. Let's lay it out. Joe Theismann, broken right tibia and fibula. Date, November 18, 1985. Team, Washington Redskins. Location, Washington, D.C. Yard line, 39. Final score, 23-21. Injured by Lawrence Taylor, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, left tackle. Joe Jacoby, a Pro Bowler, was off the field. Fast forward to November 18, 2018. 33 years to the day. Alex Smith also broke his right tibia and fibula. Same team, Washington, now under a different name. Same stadium, FedEx Field, Washington, D.C. Same yard line, 39. Final score, 23-21. Injured by J.J. Watt, also a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Left tackle, Trent Williams, also a Pro Bowler, was off the field. Same date, same field, same score, same injury. Same leg, same position, same team, same missing left tackle. Both defenders had the same number of DPOY awards. Even crazier, both men's careers were forever changed. One retired, the other had to fight for years just to walk again. If you're superstitious, you probably never want to take a snap for Washington on November 18th, especially near the 39-yard line. The Redskins rule. Football predicting politics. For decades, Washington football was more than a sports franchise. It was apparently a political oracle. The Redskins rule was a strange phenomenon that connected the outcome of the team's last home game before a U.S. presidential election with who would become president. Here's how it worked. If Washington won their final home game before the election, the incumbent party in the White House would win re-election. If Washington lost, the opposing party would take over. This weird pattern started in 1937 when the team moved to D.C., and it held strong for 18 consecutive elections, from 1940 to 2000. That's 68 years of football accurately predicting the White House. Some examples. In 1984, Washington beat the Falcons. Ronald Reagan was re-elected. In 1992, Washington lost to the Giants. Bill Clinton unseated George H.W. Bush. In 2000, Washington lost. George W. Bush beat Al Gore, despite Gore winning the popular vote. It finally broke in 2012 when Washington lost to Carolina, but Obama still won re-election. Some say that game was technically affected by a rule change moving the bye week, but either way, the streak was snapped. Still, it held true 18 out of 19 times, which is wild. Statistical anomaly? Maybe. The Seahawks and the 12th man. Super Bowl 48 was a numerological masterpiece. Before the game even kicked off, the Seattle Seahawks were known for their fan base, dubbed the 12th man. Their fans were so loud and passionate that the team actually retired the number 12 in honor of them. It was a core part of the Seahawks' identity. But during the Super Bowl against the Denver Broncos, the number 12 showed up everywhere, almost like destiny. To start the game, on the very first play, Denver's center snapped the ball over Peyton Manning's head for a safety. That safety? It came 12 seconds into the game. Fast forward to the start of the second half, Seahawks returner Percy Harvin fielded the kickoff and took it all the way back for a touchdown. The time on the clock when he scored? 12 seconds into the second half. 2 game-altering plays. Both happened exactly 12 seconds into each half. On the biggest stage in football. All while playing for the team built around the 12th man. Mike Brown's back-to-back walk-off pick sixes. Defensive touchdowns are rare. Game-winning walk-off pick sixes, even rarer. Doing it twice in a row, that's something out of a video game. In 2001, Chicago Bears safety Mike Brown pulled off one of the strangest statistical feats in NFL history. In back-to-back weeks, he ended 2 overtime games with pick sixes. Week 8, the Bears hosted the San Francisco 49ers. The game went to overtime, and just minutes in, 49ers quarterback Jeff Garcia dropped back and fired a pass. Mike Brown jumped the route, snagged the interception, and returned it 33 yards for a walk-off touchdown. Soldier Field erupted. That alone would have been an all-time highlight. But then came Week 9. Same scenario, overtime. This time against the Cleveland Browns. On the very first play of OT, Browns quarterback Tim Couch made a costly throw. Mike Brown read it like a book, picked it off, and took it back again. This time for a 16-yard game-winning score. 2 weeks, 2 overtime wins, both ending on interceptions returned for touchdowns by the same player. No one had ever done that before. No one's done it since. Bobby Lane and Matthew Stafford parallels. In 1958, the Detroit Lions traded away their star quarterback, Bobby Lane. Angry and bitter, Lane supposedly cursed the franchise on his way out, saying the Lions wouldn't win for 50 years. At the time, it sounded like sour grapes. But then, the years rolled by. The losses piled up. And as if the universe wanted to prove the curse was real, the Lions hit rock bottom exactly 50 years later. In 2008, they became the first team in NFL history to go 0-16. And what happened after that? With the first overall pick in the 2009 NFL Draft, the Lions selected quarterback Matthew Stafford, a 21-year-old from Highland Park, Texas, the same exact town Bobby Lane was from. In fact, Stafford and Lane weren't just from the same city. They grew up on the same street. They both played quarterback at Highland Park High School. And before Stafford arrived, the school hadn't won a state championship since Lane played there. It gets weirder. Lane was the Lions' last great quarterback before the curse. Stafford would become the Lions' best quarterback after it. So let's recap. Lane leaves, curses the team for 50 years. 50 years later, the Lions have the worst season in NFL history. They draft a kid from Lane Street, school, and position to end the drought. Coincidence? Maybe. The Harbaugh Bowl and Ray Lewis's first sack. Super Bowl 47 was a historic clash between two brothers coaching against each other on football's biggest stage. John Harbaugh, head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, versus his younger brother, Jim Harbaugh, head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. It was the first time in NFL history two brothers ever squared off as head coaches in a Super Bowl, and it may never happen again. But that's only the beginning of this weird web of coincidences. Let's rewind the clock to 1996. A young linebacker named Ray Lewis had just entered the league. In his rookie year, with the Baltimore Ravens, he recorded his first career sack on none other than Jim Harbaugh, who was then the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. Fast forward 17 seasons. Ray Lewis is preparing to retire. His final game? Super Bowl 47, where he faced off against Jim Harbaugh again, this time as a head coach. That's right, Ray Lewis's first sack was on Jim Harbaugh. His final NFL game came against Jim Harbaugh's team, and to top it off, Ray won. But it doesn't stop there. The Super Bowl itself was an unforgettable roller coaster. The Ravens dominated early. Then the lights literally went out in the stadium, giving the 49ers new life. San Francisco came storming back and nearly pulled off the comeback, but the Ravens held on for a 34-31 win. It felt cinematic, scripted, like fate had a hand in the matchup and in the result. Two brothers, one ring, one retiring legend, closing the circle against the man he sacked as a kid. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed. Thanks for watching.